What is up, guys? The doctor is back in the office, and today we're going to be doing a video on fights to make following the completion of UFC 325, Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopes II. And we're going to start off by matchmaking our guy Volk with the winner of Movsar versus Lerone Murphy, which has actually now just been scheduled as of today for the UFC London main event, which is a fight night. I think it's March 21st. And listen, I know everybody's pissed that I'm not doing Volk versus Diego Lopes III. That's what we all wanted. But it's still so ridiculous how, you got people shitting on Volk for having this fight. When the UFC forces upon him, he said he wanted to fight, the number one contenders in a Movsar or Lerone. Volk did his job, pieced this guy up for 5 rounds, arguably 105 rounds in my opinion. He got dropped once, it literally looked like a fucking slip. He got immediately back up. And again, they forced this matchup on Alexander Volkanovski. He out-grappled Diego Lopes, outclassed him, and now he's going to get the winner of Movsar versus Lerone Murphy. I'm pretty split 50-50 on this. I could just see a world where Movsar maybe smudged this guy. I don't really think either one of these dudes beat Alexander Volkanovski. And I'll say this about Lerone Murphy, because I think if this, let's say he never would fight Movsar, let's say that fight never happens, I think Lerone Murphy is actually the most deserving of a title shot, because listen, they were building up Aaron Pico all the way back in August. Oh, this guy's a marauder, he's this great, featherweight from Bellator. And if Aaron Pico went out there and finished or beat Lerone Murphy, they would have had a matchup of Alexander Volkanovski versus Aaron Pico. And Lerone Murphy did his job, spinning elbow, knocks out Aaron Pico, highlight reel finish, a guy that everybody's knocking on because he isn't the most exciting, doesn't have a ton of finishes. He gets that highlight reel KO. And technically, I would say he jumps Movsar then. Movsar never fights. He's not exactly the most exciting fighter. He's also a pedophile. So Lerone Murphy beats him out in a couple of categories because he's not a pedophile, has been fairly active, not super active, and got the highlight reel finish over a guy the UFC was kind of trying to market as the next threat to Volk. But winner of this is going to fight Volk. And also another thing that I like about Alexander Volkanovski, and this is why he's the fucking GOAT champion, he shuts down, potential of an Arman or a John Silva jumping Movsar or Lerone. Guy just wants to fight number one contenders. John Silva needs another win, whether he fights Yair or Aljamain Sterling or Zalal. Fuck it, any of those dudes. Maybe if he gets one more win, you could start talking about title shot with him. And Arman, bro, you're not dropping down to 145. You'd be so dehydrated. You eat so much. So that's never happening. But that's why Volk's the GOAT, because he wants to fight the number one contenders like a Movsar or Lerone Murphy. Moving on to Diego Lopes, who, listen, I'll say this about Diego Lopes. This guy's got a lot to learn. Needs to learn how to cut off the cage, man. His footwork's got to be a lot better. This guy needs to find a new gym. And I think the problem is, what is he? Lobo Gym or whatever the fuck the gym that he trains at's name is. He's kind of become the leader of the gym, so he can't even fucking leave the gym. But he should, because he needs coaches who can actually teach him how to move in the octagon, have more variation in his striking. We know he has good BJJ, and honestly looked pretty, had some decent grappling exchanges with Volk in terms of he's shutting down takedowns, but couldn't really get any of his own. But he needs to just find people who could fucking make him better, because he has all the potential in the world. But this guy's a blockhead. He is gifted, but the only fight to make, in my opinion, for Diego Lopes is Yair Rodriguez, the grudge match. Two guys who do not like each other whatsoever. Let me make myself a little bit bigger. Two guys who do not like each other whatsoever. Obvious beef between these guys. I don't even know where Yair Rodriguez has been for months. The guy's been in fucking hiding. I think he has an ACL injury. Diego Lopes just broke both of his feet. So both these guys are on a timetable when we don't really know when they're going to come back. UFC Noche, that's when I would have these guys fight. And the problem is both these guys are kind of locked out of a title shot. They're going to need to win this fight and then one more to get another chance at the belt. And Movsar and Lerone are both ahead of them. John Silva, if he beats Aljamain or Yusuf Zalal, is going to jump ahead of these guys. Even with Diego Lopes having a win over John Silva, the UFC wants John Silva to get a title shot against Volk. Again, both these guys injured on similar timetables. I think this matchup makes the most sense in terms of a really fun striking fight with beef already planted in that UFC fans know about. I think Diego Lopes moving up to 155 is also an option. He's like the textbook fighter for a BMF. But the one thing I'll say, because I have seen the 155, him moving up to 155 as an option, I am not the biggest fan of that, because I think this guy gets hit a ton at 145. The guys at 145 are stronger, and have more power. And if honestly they can exploit his weaknesses a lot more, the back end of 155 is getting a lot stronger with these prospects coming in, the old guard moving out. I think Diego Lopes, it wouldn't be the easiest thing for him to you know, become an elite 155. Or could it happen? Yes. I'm not saying it's impossible by any means, but I'm not entirely sold on it. But that being said, a fight against him and Max, or him and Charles, would be a lot of fun. But I think Yair Rodriguez makes the most sense right now in terms of two guys who were injured and on similar timelines. Moving on to the co-main winner of Benoit Saint Denis. And I was thinking of a couple guys who he could fight here. I think, he's expressed a lot of opinions in trying to fight the Charles versus Max winner. He wants to be the BMF. Also said, I'll fight Arman if I have to, and that's who I'm going to match him up with. I think Arman Tsarukyan versus BSD is a pretty interesting fight, and I'm pretty sure the UFC is going to force Arman to fight another contender to get a title shot. I know you would think, oh, he beat Dan Hooker, that should be enough. I agree, it should be enough, but the UFC doesn't operate like that. And if Arman Tsarukyan beats a guy like Benoit Saint Denis, who's on a sick run, 4 straight finishes, 4 straight wins, this would propel the winner, either of these winners, whoever wins this, into a title shot. And listen, I don't really, he has pointed to he wanting to fight for the BMF. I think the winner of that Charles versus Max fight's going to take a lot of damage. They're old. I don't really know how active they want to be. You figured BSD, is he really going to want to sit on his ass to the end of the summer, beginning of the fall? Arman really didn't take any damage against Dan Hooker. Neither did a BSD. Both these guys are on similar timelines. This could make sense. You could do it in the beginning of the summer, or maybe in May. I honestly think this would be a really sick matchup. BSD's just going to get in your face, fucking maraud, throw body kicks, throw head kicks, can mix in the offensive grappling. Arman can get in your face too. Also a sick grappler who can throw wicked kicks at you. Would be a really fun fight to see Arman beat Benoit Saint Denis, marauder dumbass. But how funny would it be if BSD won? And if Arman wins, he gets a title shot. If BSD wins, nuke the division. I don't know how we're letting this guy get a title shot. I'm still not convinced this guy is good. Because I'll say this, I don't want to take away from his wins, because the Mauricio Ruffy win, that's going to age well, clearly. Or it's showing that it's aging well. The Beneil Dariush one, whatever. He just nuked Beneil Dariush. I called that. Dan Hooker was actually looking decent in the beginning of the first round. I thought kind of edged out BSD in that first round before he got that judo throw takedown. But the thing with this guy is he moves so slow, and his takedowns are so funny to watch, where he's just driving his head down into your body, and somehow it works. I don't think that shit's gonna work against an Arman or Charles or a Max. I think a Charles fight is the most interesting in terms of, if you think BSD's gonna win, I think that's his best chance, because I think Charles is just a little too easily hittable. I'd still pick Charles to win, don't get me wrong. I think he still fucking starches this guy. But I think is a little bit more intriguing of a matchup if you think BSD, of the matchups that BSD could have, that's the most likely I'd say that he could win. But even then, I think Charles would still fucking beat his ass. Moving on to the loser of that fight, Dan Hooker. And I've already matchmade this video before. Dan Hooker versus Paddy Pimblett. Listen, obviously beef between them. Dan saying that, or Paddy saying Dan couldn't grapple a you-know-what off of his own mother. Dan saying something about Paddy Pimblett's friend Ricky, who killed himself. Could be the main event of a fight night or a co-main of a number card. I would pick Paddy Pimblett to win this just because he's a better grappler, better chin, hasn't taken as much damage as Dan Hooker has, just in the totality of his career. Obviously, he got his fucking ass kicked by Justin Gaethje. Both can kind of attack each other at range with front kicks, and it would be kind of interesting to see Dan Hooker try to, pull off a guillotine against Paddy Pimblett, and then Paddy Pimblett gets on top and just ground and pound finishes him. So I picked Paddy Pimblett to win here, but this fight would fucking sell. Obviously, beef between these guys. Everybody knows they hate each other. I'll say this about Dan Hooker. I've kind of had to fully come to the realization that this guy's just a fucking idiot and has 0 fight IQ, because he can, he hurt BSD with a body kick and just didn't do anything with it. You know what I mean? Stuff some takedowns. He has obvious skill. I just think he's taking too much damage and doesn't give a fuck about fight IQ anymore, or rational things. He's just trying to put on a show, whether he dies in the octagon or not. But I think the UFC will let both these guys take a lot of time off. Dan Hooker's a company man. Guys filled in on short notice a bunch of times, fought forever in the UFC. They'll make this fight happen. It's the money fight. Dan Hooker versus Paddy Pimblett sometime later this year. Moving on to the feature fight winner, Mauricio Ruffy. And originally I was thinking, maybe Gamrot here, but then I was like, oh, they probably want to protect Mauricio Ruffy a little bit now because they kind of gave him the Fiziev, who's a top 10 guy. They're like, ah, shit, if he loses this, we're kind of done with him for the time being. If he wins this, then we could keep pushing him up the ranks. Gamrot, I think, would be a little bit risky. Although, if you really want to see how much Mauricio Ruffy's improved in his takedown defense, that would be the fight to happen. But I think it's too much of a risk to watch Gamrot smudge Mauricio Ruffy, which is what I think would happen. But credit to Mauricio Ruffy. Big win. Finished Fiziev, who I think the only time he'd been quote-unquote finished was in his debut. Like, he obviously had that injury in the fight against Gamrot. So the only time I think he had been knocked out was in his debut. Really impressive win for him. And the BSD loss ages well for him. BSD's a win away from a title shot. And I'm going to match him with Michael Chandler. I mean, Michael Chandler, I think this fight was actually supposed to happen as like the main event of like UFC China. And Mauricio Ruffy even called out Michael Chandler for a matchup. And listen, Michael Chandler, buddy, you are not getting the Conor McGregor fight. Ruffy kind of moves around and, acts a little bit like a watered down Conor McGregor, like a Brazilian Conor McGregor. And like, here's my comp for this. Conor McGregor is like the Kobe Bryant of this kind of karate style archetype. And Mauricio Ruffy is like Deion Waiters. I wouldn't even say he's J.R. Smith. He's like Deion Waiters good. He could give you 30 or he could give you 2. You know what I mean? He's essentially just a shittier version of Conor McGregor. And Michael Chandler, he's only going to want to fight big name prospects. And Ruffy fits that bill. I was also considering Quillan Salkilld for here. But it would just be funnier to watch Mauricio Ruffy, a kind of Conor McGregor style, sleep Michael Chandler at the White House. You know how funny that'd be? Dana White make it happen. Because imagine you're Dana White, you're going up the Michael Chandler, and you're like, we got a guy who moves around just like Conor McGregor, can strike just like Conor McGregor, but isn't Conor McGregor. Michael Chandler would be ruined. But he's going to have to take this fight because the McGregor fight is never happening. It would be really funny to watch this. Moving on to the loser of that fight, Rafael Fiziev. Rafael Fiziev, in my opinion, I've said it for a while, needs to go down to 145. His power just doesn't translate at 155, and he's locked out of a title shot. I don't really know what's next for him. He's probably going to fight some sick prospect at 155 if he stays there, but I think he should go to 145 and fight David Obamna. We like this David Obamna. He blends in with my screen very well. Seriously, you can see him. That was a little bit of fucking racist, but whatever. I considered giving Fiziev Allen, but I kind of want Arnold Allen to move up to 155 and fight Gamrot. I think Fiziev could go on a little bit of a nasty run at 145. His power maybe translates more to the size. Like, he does do so many good things. He has elite level footwork, elite level kicks. His boxing is not great, but he does have the build to be like, shit, this guy could be a really good 145er. David Odom, I don't really even think he's that good, but he is ranked and he is a name. Like, Giga Chikadze could also make sense, but he's not ranked anymore. So I was like, Fiziev's got to fight a ranked guy. I mean, the guy was top 10 in lightweight. Obviously, that's subject to change now. I just want Fiziev to make a nice run. I like this guy. He's cool as fuck. Has a fun fighting style. Obviously talented. 155, I just think is too deep for him. It would take so much for this guy to make a run at 155. I think 145, it is open for him to at least slime out all the dudes that are 10 through 15. And maybe he could beat like 2 guys in the top 10. Who knows? But that being said, Rafael Fiziev versus David Obamna. Make it happen. Moving on. Oh, I just spoiled that one. Tallison Teixeira. I'm going to put him against Shamil the Meal Gaziev. Listen, Tallison Teixeira, you're absolutely pathetic. You're a terrorist. That was one of the worst fights I've ever seen against Tai Tuivasa. Like, you had full mount on Tai Tuivasa for a minute and couldn't do anything. You couldn't finish Tai Tuivasa somehow, and you were gassed out. Almost lost to 2026 Tai Tuivasa, who's on a 6-fight losing streak now. Shamil Gaziev obviously just got knocked out. Kind of a brutal loss to Waldo Cortez Acosta, who came on short notice. I think Shamil would have beaten Sergey Spivak, and then he's just got to fight this fucking Dominican badass Waldo. But both guys have 0 cardio. They could probably both die of cardiac arrest in the octagon. Make it happen. Somebody's getting hilariously finished, or you just get blobfest for 3 rounds. Moving on to the loser of that fight, Tai Tuivasa. Realistically, Tai Tuivasa, you need to go to dirty boxing, man. There's nothing, like, I just don't see I don't know what's next for this guy. Like, realistically, I think he just gets cut. But I originally matched him with Mick Parkin, and then Mick Parkin just got announced to fight Mario Pinto today. So it's like, oh, maybe, whatever. But I don't know. Dirty boxing's all I have for Tai Tuivasa. Real shame. I wanted to see a shoey really badly at UFC 325, and we didn't fucking get it. So now I have to leave. Tai Tuivasa is going to do fucking damage in dirty boxing, though. If they want to keep him in the UFC, like, could he fight a Josh Hokett? You know what I mean? Like, is that unrealistic? You know what I mean? Give him a name still, get people to tune in. I don't want to see Josh Hokett fucking beat Tai Tuivasa's ass, though. Part of me still believes in him to a degree in terms of, like, he looked better than I thought he would against Tallison Teixeira. I figured he was just going to die in a round and just looked fat for 3 rounds. So that was better than my expectations. But either way, he's going to dirty boxing. That's the thing. That's the play for him. Moving on to Quillan Salkilld, the boy himself. You got to give him a ranked opponent. And we're trying to get the Unks out of the lightweight division. It has to be Beneil Dariush. I considered Michael Chandler here, but I wanted to eliminate another Unk, and I didn't think Mauricio Ruffy would fight Beneil Dariush. I just feel like that'd be... It wouldn't even be worth it for him. But Quillan Salkilld, this should be a one that you knock this guy out. And this fight was rumored, I'm pretty sure, for UFC 325. Let Quillan Salkilld nuke whatever's left of Beneil Dariush's chin. And shit, maybe if Quillan Salkilld can't nuke it early, then we get to see his grappling like really tested against the guy who is a pretty good grappler. But I would pick Quillan Salkilld to win this by finish very early. We just need to get rid of these Unks. Like, Ribovic is going to fight Renato Moicano. If Ribovic wasn't fighting Moicano, I would say Salkilld coming on short notice and beat Renato Moicano in a month. That's what I would say. But Esteban Ribovic looking like he's going to fight Moicano. Dariush fights Salkilld. And what's it called? Fiziev will be out of there if he moves down to 145. And Michael Chandler fights Mauricio Ruffy. So we're starting to get rid of all the Unks. We're starting to get rid of these dudes. Salkilld versus Beneil Dariush should be pretty fun to watch. Our boy Quillan Salkilld continuing to build up through the ranks. Moving on, we're going to do 2 prelim guys because there wasn't that many exciting prelims. Cam Rowston. Pretty exciting middleweight. I was kind of looking outside the rankings to see, oh shit, who could we have him face? I thought Iron Turtle. I hadn't really seen anybody give him this matchup. Iron Turtle's pretty fucking good. Lost to Ikram Aliskerov in his last fight, 9-4 in the UFC. Hard to finish. I think he's only been finished by RoboCop and Fluffy. Rowston can grapple and strike pretty well. Like, has wins over names in the division like the Cody Brundage, Anthony Smith, and Andre Petrosky. I don't know, make it happen. I don't really have much to say about this, but I feel like Cam Rowston, he kind of needs a bigger step up in competition. A guy who's outside the rankings, and then you get Rowston where he's fighting for an actual ranking spot after this. There's a lot of like the back end of middleweight, I do think is kind of decent, even though I think most of the ranked guys suck. But Iron Turtle's pretty good. Everybody loves Iron Turtle. Cam Rowston's just kind of fucking weird and funky. I like this matchup. I think it'd be pretty fun. Moving on to the final matchup, that's Jonathan Micallef, and I'm going to do him versus Andreas Gustafsson. 2 autistic motherfuckers. I mean, Jonathan Micallef just throws these really wide hooks, and it's really unorthodox and looks like it makes no sense, but he can fucking scrap, can grapple a little bit, can grapple, obviously. If Micallef wins, then he's a win away from actually fighting a guy that he called out, I think, a Neil Magny, and then you're talking, ooh, maybe he gets a ranked fight after that. Just to be a fun scrap. Gustafsson gets him a chance to redeem himself after losing to Rinat Fakhretdinov, right? But he's cut from the UFC now. I just think this would be a fun fight. I don't know. I saw this circulating around online. And those are my predictions or matches I want to see following UFC 325. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. The doctor is signing off.